Hey everybody, it's the last video of the year, and I thought that I would take the time in this video to talk a bit about, it's been a long one for me. Kaylina left and I had to learn how to run the business myself, and for the first 7 years of Corter, I ran it myself. And so as the year comes to an end, a very successful year, a year where I got to release my signature tools and you guys supported me beyond belief. I started conditioning my bag, as I do every year, and in looking at the bag it got me thinking about permanence and how permanent things are and how we may construct bags or wallets or whatever we're making, and how we might do that in a way that something lasts a lifetime. Now, lasting a lifetime to me does not mean that it's never going to break. Lasting a lifetime to me means that we make things in a way that they're repairable. Let's take this bag. I'm going to take this bag for example for this whole video because it's the easiest thing to do. I've been carrying this bag for 3 to 4 years now. You can go back on my Instagram when I built it or whatever. If we look at this bag, there are a lot of features here that I basically designed what I wanted in a bag, and then I worked backwards from how I would repair it to how I'm going to make it. One of the big things on this bag is that it's essentially a 3-piece construction. Now, we don't have to take the pocket into account because you don't have to put a pocket on the bag. But if we did, it's kind of future-proof in a way. And I think it illustrates the whole mantra of this bag. Because instead of sewing the pocket to the body and then the liner to cover the pocket stitching, I stitch through the whole bag. So if I ever have to replace the pocket, I don't have to remove the liner. I don't even have to take the bag apart. I can make a new pocket and just sew it in through the old holes. We take the 3-piece construction of the bag: front piece, back piece, and the bottom tray. Now, this bag has 2 things that I like to include in most of my bags. A lower tray that's removable and short handles. Now, it also has a crossbody strap, which I admittedly use most of the time, but the handles are just as much for hanging the bag onto a hook or something when I'm traveling. And this does get a lot of travel. It's a small bag, but I can fit 3 changes of clothes in there and a laptop, no problem. And the bottom doesn't have bag feet. The bottom tray, can be completely taken off the bag and replaced. So if it gets worn out, which it's not, looks brand new. Moving on to the interior of the bag, I'm a pretty simple guy. I like just a wide open tote, but I do like having a little organizer on the inside. And you'll notice in this bag that the interior organizer is just held on by 2 rivets. And so that means that if I ever down the line need to carry something specific, I can just drill those 2 rivets out, make a holder or an organizer for exactly what I need, and install them into the bag. And on the front of the bag, we have a pocket. Now, we can make that pocket bigger and avoid visible stitch lines. But to be fair, that pocket's just kind of an extra thing that I use for things that I might want to grab, pens, stuff like that. So in thinking about this bag and how I've been constructing bags the last few years, because I really think that my work kind of adjusted from I make wallets to, oh, I have the ability to make this caliber of work. It made me realize that I was starting to think about leather differently. I was starting to think about leather in a what you would call heritage type way, in a type way that it could be handed down to someone or used by someone after I'm gone. And I don't think it's realistic to expect leather to last hundreds and hundreds of years. You know, it might get lost in a bog somewhere and deprived of oxygen and then found. It might get taken really, really well care of. I have a whole stack of bags from the 70s that are still ripping and roaring and ready to go. However, I like to think of things, if you use the right materials, that they will last forever, but it's because they're repairable. Now, what are some of the materials that we use in modern leather craft that may not necessarily have existed 50 or 60 years ago that make these bags, that give us the ability to use these bags? Now, this has been around for a while, but my handles are tubular handles, and I've used leather on the inside. You can use a synthetic cord. I would suggest either using leather so it molds to your grip and it also dries out pretty quick, or using some sort of nylon rope. Cotton can get moldy and smelly. Leather can too, don't get me wrong, but it's less apt to. And the ubiquitous plastic tubing rots away, has to be replaced. It's always good to use a solid core on a rolled handle. The rivets on this are pop rivets, double cap pop rivets, nothing fancy. I have a bag that I carried for 8 years that has solid rivets. There's nothing wrong with those either. But the thing I like about the small rivets is that you can drill them out really, really quickly and you can replace them. I've never had to do that on this bag. It has carried 40, 50 pounds. I've traveled, like I said, I travel with it, so never had a problem with it. And I think I have 6 rivets total holding up my shoulder strap, 3 on each side. All solid brass hardware. That's always something that will last basically forever. You're going to have to work really hard to wear out a solid brass D-ring. And little things like, I believe Buckle Guy calls it cordana. Rocky Mountain has their own stiffener as well. But these are pulp-based stiffeners. Now what that means is, unlike cardboard or something rigid, if I use this in between all of the panels, and it's to prevent stretch. Now, if you use a nice synthetic thread, that's also going to prevent stretch. So on this bag, I have used a synthetic thread and I've hand stitched it. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that I don't think all bags need to be hand stitched, but if we're talking about building a bag that's easily repairable, if you're a leathersmith, or if you're making it for a leathersmith, or if you are handy and want to repair your own stuff, a saddle stitch can be, if you break a stitch, you can repair it in 2 seconds, whereas if you machine sew it, you have to pull the whole stitch line and re-sew it, which in a lot of scenarios means that you have to have the right machine to be able to do it. So if you have a flatbed machine and you need a long arm machine, you're really kind of stuck hand sewing it anyway. So what can we learn from all of these little bits that make up this whole bag? I think what we can learn is that one of the most important parts of designing a bag is designing it for the future, and not in a Jetsons way, but in a use way. This would be a very expensive bag. I've sold a few of them. It's a 50-hour bag on top of about $700 in materials. It truly is an investment piece for the rest of your life. So to make it in a way where it can be repaired is not only fair to the bag itself, but it's fair to the customer, or whoever's using it. Because to make a bag like this and to have one thing break and then to have to make another bag would just be a travesty. I know it's not a crazy video, but it is a bunch of little tips and tricks that have really helped me. And in looking with fresh eyes after a few years of getting super heavy into bag making, it has really been an eye-opener to look at how I made this bag and how I make bags, almost starting backwards, starting from the repair stage and then moving forwards, getting the design down, and then immediately thinking, okay, how do I make it repairable? And then going into the design phase. Because there are some stitches that you'd have to take the whole bag apart. There are some things where you'd have to like rip seams apart or rip entire panels apart, which would basically it'd be more cost efficient to build a new bag. That's not what we're trying to do here. So this is a little bit of a different type video. It's one that I just kind of wanted to make to help you think about your own designs and what they're going to look like. I'm staring down my 17th year of being a leather worker. I'm already in it. And I'm 36. So I turned 37 in 2 months. So in a year, in 2 months, I'll have been doing leatherwork professionally for half my life. And that is something. I knew I could handle 33, 34, 35, 36. I knew that mid-30s, no problem. 37 feels like it's gonna, I'm not saying it's old, but it feels midlife. Hopefully it's not. And I think if you don't go back and look at the things that you've made, how you've made them, how your work has evolved, history repeats itself. You have to go and you have to always be looking at your old work. I like to keep some things around the shop that I've made in the past just so I can look back, see how I did things, see how I'm improving, see how maybe I did things better in the past. Sometimes that happens too. And that's it. Big thanks to Sophia at Malevolent for always providing me with the coolest keychains. Big thanks to Chuck for giving a fuck. And I hope you all have a healthy, happy new year. And I'll see you next week for another video.